are live and on lockdown.
Are you ready?
Broadcasting from Edinburgh, Scotland and across the globe.
Listen here.
You're listening to Ramsey Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast for host Fraser Ramsey.
Hey, this is Afia Leatham, creator of the Frame Your Day app, helping you walk out every day in victory. I'm proud to be a sponsor of Ramsey Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders.
Hi, this is Zakia Ringgold from naturalsoapbyzakia.com, proud sponsors of the Ramsey Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast.
Hi, good day wherever you are in the world. It's our edition of Ramsey Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast, coming to you live via Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And our guest linked via via the podcast guest groups on Facebook. This will also be on for audio purposes via the podcast. So if you're watching, depending where you're listening or watching around the world, this is another edition. We are interviewing, my guest is Dwight L Price. We're talking about basically how he's come from basically being on the streets to 17 years in prison, to turning his life around and basically using his experience and what he's learned from his bad days and teaching youth how to avoid what he went through and how he's an entrepreneur and what he's doing now. So we're going to dissect the kind of the beginning, because you don't get to where you are in 17 years in jail for literally doing nothing. So it starts somewhere. There's always a story to how you get into either bad stuff in some way or form, but it's how you make the change and how you turn it around. And this is why we're here. So welcome, Dwight, to the Ramsey Unleashed Going Beyond Borders podcast. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. It's Friday. Woohoo! Well, it's Friday. I'm doing this podcast. For those who are listening, I should never use days, but it's a Friday, because it's one thing I tell myself: never. If you keep it evergreen and not say a day or a date, it means it's generic. So if you are listening to this, it is a Friday, but it could be another day. Anyway, but yes, I'm doing good. So let's dive in. It's we've obviously been booking this in for a wee bit. We finally got here, and it's the reason why we're doing it today is because it's your son's birthday and the next again day, and hopefully have something nice planned for him. I'm sure he's excited. But let's dive in. So let's tell us, really, let's just dissect your life. Dissect exactly your kind of where you're born, brought up, the usual kind of scenario, and how the chapter unfolded and how you got lit, basically regarding the streets and everything, and how life was with your mother, etc., and your family, bringing up mother or father. Usual rigmarole. Go for it. Fire away.
All right. So I was born in a small neighborhood called Lincoln Heights. It's in the suburbs of people might know Cincinnati, Ohio. My mother had me when she was about 18, 19. My father was a street guy, he was a few years older than her. Raised up in a pretty good household. Then my father, I think he started using drugs in the late 80s. I was born in 77, so my father started using drugs in the late 80s. Ultimately, my mom turned to alcohol to deal with the stress that he was, causing to her. And I was kind of, raised up in the mix. My father taught me how to, hustle. He was a hustler, so he taught me how to hustle. So I never had any ambitions about, being an athlete or thinking about, say legal jobs or going to college or anything. I was always a shorter guy. So my father taught me how to hustle. So I grew up hustling. Even when I was in middle school, I was, selling candy. By the time I made it to high school, I started off selling marijuana. Then that gradually turned into selling crack cocaine. So after my 11th grade year, I ended up being out with some friends. And one of my friends, the plan was to commit a robbery. So one of my friends ended up killing somebody in the process of committing this robbery. Long story short, we ended up getting caught, ended up going to prison for 11 years. Well, I went to prison for 11 years. My co-defendant who actually pulled the trigger, I think he did a couple more. He might have did 15. Well,
let's dissect that long story, because we don't want to go for the short version. We want to go for the long version here. So let's dissect this a bit more. So that's a very, very fast abbreviation of it. So at what age were you Talks about, let's go through the ages. Obviously, schools in America are different to here. We start our school, say kindergarten, nursery. We go from pretty much 2, 3 up to age 4. I mean, you hit 5, you go to primary 1, and between the ages of 5 and up to 11, you're at your primary school. Then from 11 till 18, your secondary school, and after that, you either leave and you go to either college or university. Right. Afterwards, that's our sort of curriculum. What kind of how it works over here? I know they've got a lot of different levels in America, basically. So, what age were you selling candy, and how did it develop when you were hustling and then selling that next stage? And what was the key thing that got you into selling marijuana? And then who was the bad influence in you, or who was the kind of people that were kind of got you into this kind of selling? I know it was your dad, but as you get to the further part, you know what I mean, the hard stuff.
Well, when you we got middle school, so that would be like after elementary school, say 7th to 8th grade. That's middle school. So in middle school, my mom had something called food stamps here. So where she can use these, look like similar to money, but it was called food stamps. So they would give women who didn't have income coming in, they would give them food stamps to take care of their kids. So I would go to the store with my mom. I would purchase things like snacks, like honey buns, Debbie's or whatnot. And I would take them to school and I would sell these to, some of my classmates. So that's what I mean by hustling. My father was already, he was away from the home, like in and out. Going to prison or just running the streets. So I didn't have that father figure at that time of my life. Now, after you leave from middle school, when you start high school, it'd be like in the 9th grade. So in the areas that I came up in, it was like the hood. The hood is considered to be, like a poor, predominantly poor neighborhood. So growing up in the hood, you would see the people in our neighborhoods that had the nice thing like cars and things like that. Majority of them got it from selling drugs. So, being with my father sometime, he showed me, just a couple of, tricks of how you can, get over on people, finesse people, things like that. So I started, it was an adult. I can't remember exactly who it was, but an adult offered me, some weed to sell. So I took the weed to sell, and I knew, like I say, my father came from the streets and I knew he was involved in the drug trade. So when I took the weed to sell, that's how I became really active in, when it comes to hustling. So I'm gonna say it was probably about my 9th grade year of high school.
So what kind of money were you making when you're selling drugs? Because obviously you can make some serious cash.
Yeah, you can. So I was young when I started. I remember my first time I purchased, you got something called an ounce of weed. It's just like an ounce of anything. So I had an ounce of weed, but I purchased a half an ounce I think I purchased it for like $65. And if I'm not mistaken, I made $60 off of it. So I actually lost $5. And that's when I realized the person who I purchased it from, they didn't even give me my equal amount of what I should have got. So unbeknownst to me, I was young in the game, and it was just like, I'm like, okay, the person telling me I could buy something from them, and I heard you're going to make money with it, but I didn't know what it was supposed to weigh or anything like that because I was just new. So that's one of them things where if you don't know what you getting into in the beginning, you leave yourself open to where people can prey on you. So I wasn't even making the money that I should have made off of it in the beginning.
Interesting. So at what stage did you get this of doing the cocaine? Because obviously marijuana was your first thing, but then you got to, how did you sort of, when that doesn't happen, you don't just suddenly go, I'll just start selling cocaine. What was your, who introduced you to cocaine?
It probably was, I'm going to say maybe a year later, just being in the neighborhood. Like, if you in the hood, you're going to see the people who come through with the certain nice cars, the nice outfits, and you know where it come from. So speaking to some of the elders, the hood can be a gift and a curse. If you got, I'm gonna give you an example. Somebody's a basketball player named LeBron James over here. He's real big globally. So LeBron James, he came up in a hood, a bad area in Akron, Ohio. So the hood will protect somebody like LeBron James. They see LeBron, oh, you're a basketball star. You good in basketball. You have a chance to make it out the hood because of your skill set. So if he was trying to come up there to sell drugs, the hood would get him away. Nah, you get out of here. If you need anything, the older guys in the hood will offer to buy it for him because they knew he had a way to get out the hood because of his skill set. But then you got other people like me the hood will offer you the drugs because they say this guy too little. He ain't going to make it nowhere. So let's give him an option where he can make money in the streets. You understand? So that's the difference between a kid who playing sports and high school. I always tell parents to put your kids in sports because when they leave out of class and they stay after school for another 2 hours, they're around coaches, people who really care about them, people who want to see them do well, as opposed to a kid who's leaving straight from high school. Now they're going back to the hood, a negative environment where you got a lot of people pulling at them. And now they got that idle time to where somebody can get a hold of them if they don't know any better and put things in their face as drugs or something else like that. So that's what kind of happened to me. Going home from school, not going to basketball practice, football practice, coming straight home from school, got time to run the streets, start selling cocaine in like the 10th grade.
So when did you have a vision? You obviously see these nice cars. When did you sort of kind of go for when was your first car purchase with the drug money? Did you buy a car or what did you do with the money?
I mean, I was just taking care of myself, clothes. You really weren't making a lot of money because you didn't know what you was really doing. You was in the beginning stages of it. So that was, like I said, around my 10th grade year. My 11th grade year, same thing, just making a little money, just enough money to have clothes. Didn't have a car, just enough money to really just buy clothes and, spend on your girlfriend, go out with friends, things like that. It definitely wasn't. It might have been some money to a teen, like somebody still in high school, but it wasn't any money by, somebody who, had a job at the time. It was just, pennies at the time.
Okay. So you came up with the idea regarding obviously you're seeing your friend regarding going to do this bank robber or this robbery. And who came up with that idea and why did you sort of kind of what made you sort of go into it or be involved?
It was just one of the friends said, man, I know where some guys be at who, we can make some money off of them. So at the time, remember I told you I was selling cocaine by the time. Now I knew my friends that was with me. I said, well, I'm selling cocaine. I'm already making a little money. So I said, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, if they go rob these guys, they're going to get the money and come back and spend it with me. So I didn't want to be a part of the robbery. You understand? I wasn't a part of the robbery, but I said, if I had the van that we was driving, which was it was a crack addict who let me use their vehicle because I gave him crack to have a vehicle. So I had the vehicle. I got my friends with me. And when they came with that idea, oh, yeah, I know somewhere we can rob some guys or whatever, they got money. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, if they go rob them guys, the money that they bring, they going to come and spend the money with me because they're going to buy some of this cocaine so they can sell the cocaine for me. So that's how I ended up getting involved with this robbery, which ended up turning bad and it turned into a murder.
That's good. So when did you get caught or what was it? I mean, how did they find you or because you weren't really technically involved when the guy was murdered, but you're self-involved, but how did they catch you? So
you got people who giving descriptions of the event that happened. You got the license plates of the vehicle. So when you think back, like I say, once we got arrested and we thought about what they told us, it's like it all came together and it made sense because the van had circled the block. I stayed around the corner waiting on them. They exited the van. They go around there. So when the crime got committed, I guess they went back and interviewed. There was a lot of people who was witnesses to, who seen what occurred. So with the license plates, they tracked back who the van was, who the van was registered to, used that to find out who we were. So it was just a trickle down effect that was easy to get to the bottom of it. So when that young, I was 17 at the time. Two of my co-defendants was 16. One of my other co-defendants was 18. So at the time, you got detectives who've been doing this. They've been doing their job for longer than we've been alive. This guy's been on the force for 30 years. So it was real easy. It wasn't like this what we was planning to do, but these was the events that had unfolded. So it was within, a day or so. They know exactly who we were just from questioning the person who van it was. And
it's quite a quick process.
Yeah, definitely was quick.
So you went to jail for you said 11 years the first stint, or did you get out, or did you go back to jail, or kind of how was that process?
Yeah, I did 11 years, and when you're in prison, one thing about prison here, it's up to you to rehabilitate yourself. So you're around people that's you can you talk to people about what they did, and it's a lot of planning going there, how you could have did something differently, and why it didn't work out. So, in prison, was in there from 17 to 28. And I was around just, a lot of people, like the type of people that really be in prison. I got my GED. I did go to college, but by the time I got out of prison, that was 8 years later after I had got I had an associate degree. So when I came back home, went to the same area I got locked up from, the same people and the same vices that was there. So, somebody offered me, hey, look, I got some of this cocaine you can make some money off of. And I took the cocaine and I took it from there and started hustling again.
And what happened? Did you get caught again? Go back to obviously jail, because what's your jail story?
I got caught again. I think I was out for let me see. I probably was out about 4 years or something like that. So when I was out them 4 years, now I was a little older, so I definitely started making money at that time. So by that time, as soon as I came home, within I'm gonna say 2 months after coming home, I bought a truck, bought a motorcycle. I had already had my first son was born. He was born before I went to prison. So I got back with his mother. She had a couple kids while I was in prison. So I came home taking care of the family. So now in the streets, older, knowing what's going on. Now it was a different time. It was money was being made at that time. Money was being made at that time. A lot of money was being made at that time.
So when did you, because you were in total, 17 years in jail, in prison in total, yeah?
Yeah.
And so you were there 6 years basically. And what made you, give us a day-to-day prison life insight. Obviously jail to the UK is probably different to jail in America, but give people a picture who might be listening to this of what your jail is like in America. And I know there's different types of jails in America. And I know from obviously, what goes on. Obviously, you're saying you did study and the kind of people you connect with to try and rehabilitate yourself. But give us a bit of an insight to a day-to-day basis, sort of what goes on, routine.
So when I was younger, when I got locked up, I was in there just playing sports and just, kicking it, just growing up. I wasn't really doing anything. But like I said, after I came home, I ended up catching a conspiracy to trafficking cocaine charge. So when I went back to jail this time, I did a little over 5 years. It was a little over 5 years. So now I had a mindset of when I get released, I have to change. I'm going to be a little older now, and I got to come up with something. So while I was in there this time, every single day, I worked on, it was going to be a nonprofit. I worked on coming back. I figured I could tell my story to some kids and I could, change my life. It was a guy that came into the prison one time. I took a program. I think the program was called Turo. So when I finished the program, the guy who started the program, he came in an auditorium in the prison to speak to everyone. So I remember sitting in the auditorium and this guy was telling us, he said, I'm an ex-offender. He said, I actually did 12 years in prison. So I remember sitting there like, wow, he did 12 years in prison. So he said, I started this program when I came home, and they talked about how many people took the program, how it's helping people out. So I remember looking at this guy, right? At the time, I remember he had a Apple Watch on, and I'm like, this is something I had been reading about, the Apple Watch. I remember just being mesmerized, like, oh, he got the watch they say he could talk on. I'm mesmerized by looking at the watch. So as I'm listening to his story, I really sat there and said, man, you know what? If this guy got out of prison and became something successful, why can't I? I said, I can do the same exact thing. I just kept telling myself, I can do the same thing. So really, he was my motivation. He was my motivation to, when I left, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, I want to get back some kind of way. I want to get back to some kids, but I can become something successful. So the whole time I was locked up this time, I'm reading books. I'm learning about nonprofit. I'm sitting on the yard. The yard is like the area where you can just like go talk to other people who are in prison. And now I'm having productive conversation. I'm having a lot of dialogue about what do we need to do to change the youths in the community where we come from. So this was my biggest thing, what I focused on for pretty much that whole bit. So my mindset was different because I was older.
Let's go. So when you got out of prison, you started developing, obviously wanting to change, and speak to the youth. What was your first sort of starting point, basically?
So I ended up coming home. My brother, he had already started like a cleaning service. So when I came home, I started working for my brother doing janitorial work. Wasn't making no money, just enough to kind of help with the bills, not pay the bills, to help with the bills. So I tell my brother, I said, man, every night we getting up at nighttime going to clean 4-5 buildings while somebody is at home making money off us out here working. So I never felt comfortable with doing that, right? So remember, when you come to really giving your story back, I came out, I put up a post on Facebook saying a GoFundMe page, telling people I want to help kids. I didn't get not one person comment, offer to donate some money. So I had to put that on hold because I came home and I got to get myself in a predicament, a position to where I could get my feet up under me so I will be able to get back to the kids when the time came right. So we started the janitorial service, working. A woman put a post up on Facebook and she said, I'm looking for some cleaners to clean this apartment complex, because we had a cleaning franchise. So that was like a company. We bought a franchise through them. They would give you the jobs and they get a cut of your money because they found out the jobs for you. But we did, that's kind of business we was doing. So when a woman put the post up on Facebook, she said, I'm looking for some cleaners to clean these 2 apartment complexes. Everybody, comment on the messages. So I told her, you got people saying I charge $125 for an apartment. I charge $150. People going back and forth with this, telling this. We put a comment and said, listen, we'll come and clean an apartment for free to show you what we can do. So she said, hold on, you saying y'all the only ones who responded with something like that? You would clean the apartment for free? We said, absolutely. She said, that's a win-win situation. So we went up there, we cleaned the apartment. Our father, my brother, and I, we cleaned the apartment. That's what we've been doing. So we knew we was going to knock the ball out the park. She came, looked at it like, wow, this is really good. She said, do you all have a tax ID number or a tax ID number or insurance? We said, no, we don't. She said, get a tax ID number and get some insurance, and you can start off cleaning these 2 apartment complexes. The apartment complexes was roughly, it might have been, I'm going to say 600 units, somewhere around there, maybe 600 to 700 units between the 2 of them. So she said, out of all the comments that we got, you guys were the only ones who offered to do it for free. And that's what made me look at y'all. So we cleaned it for free, ended up getting a tax ID number, get some insurance. And we had our first contractor where there was no middleman. We sat down and we made a lot of money from this company cleaning apartments. So I'm gonna let you ask a question, but the story really continues because you might have a question in between.
I know, because that's what I do. Is my main job is I run a cleaning business. I've been doing it for 13 years. So,
okay.
So I clean homes. I do homes, offices. And if you actually look at when you finish this, if you look at my Facebook wall, I posted a before and after video of a job that I just did this week. And you'll see kind of thing. So I have cleaned some really dirty places to kind of relatively clean places. I know what you're talking about when it comes to the cleaning side of things. Yes, the ins and outs. But yeah, so just carry on with. So you got your first contract, boom, and where did it go from there?
So listen, they had so many apartments, right? And they had a little small staff that actually worked for the apartment complex. So I remember they called us in the office. They said, can you guys do a trash out? We said, what's a trash out? She said, everything in the apartment, just throw it away. I'm like, who can't do that? So we started doing trash outs. And this is all in a matter of, I'm going to say maybe a 2-month period. So we started doing trash outs. Then she said, we got so many vacancies. Our maintenance men are behind. Can you all flip an apartment? We're like, what's flipping apartment? She was like, paint, hang blinds, things like that. So we was like, well, we really probably can't do it by ourselves, but we can definitely go hire some people. So I told my brother, I said, listen, it's a lot of guys that come out of prison and they have a skill set. It was a lot of guys I met all the years I was in prison and they had a skill set. Where they mess up is when they get back home, a lot of people go back to the vice, whatever that vice was they sent them to prison, whether it's using drugs or selling drugs. So I said, we can go down here to the halfway house. In prison, you only made $18 a month at the time. You hear me? You made $18 a month at the time. So I said, we can go down here and get guys who are fresh out of prison, offer them $10 an hour. They going to love that. And at the time, $10 an hour, that was a low wage over here. But I said $10 an hour, they going to love this because they home free. They working for $10 an hour. They getting the